and welcome to another episode of Railroaded in Missoula. The homeless story. The story of our brothers and sisters and their survival. My name is Richie. I can be reached at 258-6028. 258-6028. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Railroaded in Missoula, the homeless story. I'm going to cover a lot of different things again tonight like we usually do, and I think one of the ways to start is another download. There should exist among citizens neither extreme poverty nor, again, excessive wealth, for both are productive of great evil. Plato, Greek philosopher, about 2,500 years ago. Hasn't changed. Legislators aren't doing anything. They're not determining the limit of poverty or of wealth. This was one solution. Instead, the attitude is, let's make them criminals. It's happening across the country. You can read it. Homeless people being arrested for this, for that. And there's a small faction right here in Missoula. Let's make them criminals. Let's railroad them out of town. Let's get rid of them. There's a committee, I understand now, working on a homeless solution in the downtown situation come springtime. Going to come up with a lot of different things. From what I read in the paper, apparently the majority of the people on it are pretty level-headed people. They recognize the fact that these people on the street are human beings. But there's the few. Let's make them criminals. Well, let's find out who these people are, and let's get rid of them. Missoula doesn't need them. Missoula doesn't need them at all. We can either have democracy in this country, or we can have great wealth concentrated in the hands of a few. But we can't have both. Louis Brandeis, Supreme Court Justice. Democracy, everybody benefits. Everybody's treated fairly. We don't have it. Not when there's people saying, let's make them criminals. Thomas Schmidt, writing The Midas Trap, 1990. Every time Jesus offers an opinion about riches, it is negative. Every time he teaches about the use of wealth, he counsels disciples to give it away. Now, did he say, give it to the select few? Of course not. Everybody was his brothers and sisters, equally. We're all equal in the eyes of Jesus. He counsels, give it away. Don't play favorites. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't tell one person in the morning, no, we don't have any blankets. And in the afternoon, you're one of the good guys. Here's a couple of blankets for you. Doesn't work. It's not the way Jesus would do it. Jim Wallace, editor, Sojourners magazine, just last year writing, in 1999. There is no more central theme in the Bible than the immorality of inequality. Jesus speaks more about the gap between the rich and the poor than he does about heaven and hell. I didn't realize that. That's interesting. I believe it. This man knows what he's talking about. Jesus speaks more about the gap between the rich and the poor than he does about heaven and hell. It's really something to think about. And in 1996, Representative Richard Gephardt, if we cannot find a way to share and spread prosperity, we invite the hatred of those who would punish, pillory, and pigeonhole, seeking scapegoats instead of solutions. Sounds like that place at 535 Ryman. Blame this one, throw that one out. Find scapegoats for the things that go wrong down there. Don't try to find solutions. Don't try to find out what went wrong. why it went wrong. Make a scapegoat, let's go our merry way, and keep asking for donations. Last week's edition of The Independent had a really great article. Ron Selden, the author, reads, "No Room at the Table." This was interesting. It explains the situation of the homeless, the underdeployed, what's happening in Montana. More and more people getting hungry all the time. Concerning the Poverello, Ken writes, Pengali, this is Laurie Pengali, the new executive director. In 1999, the main center, the Poverello itself, served 84,822 meals, up from 77,852 the year before. So far this year, 45,910 meals at the end of June. They're going to break the record. Similar trends, although less dramatic, are being tracked at the group's Joseph House, where a zoning change is being sought to expand capacity. This is the interesting part. I mean, the figures are staggering. More and more people are coming to eat. Peggy Grimes, the director of the Montana Food Bank, in the same article writes, "Food banks used to be used mainly in emergencies, for house fires, and by transients. Now food banks are serving the underemployed." And by the way, underemployed was spelled wrong. Neither here nor there, though. Now that's a real change. And the situation is changing in Missoula. Many people come to the Poverello every day, and they come at night after work. They make minimum wage. They don't have enough money. So the people in Missoula, which I think the latest term is food insecure, they're growing. There's increasing numbers. Well, the thing I probably found the most interesting about this article is the Joseph House, where a zoning change is being sought to increase capacity. Well, when the Joseph House opened, it went through the whole zoning board and everything. And by law, they were limited to 25 clients. Women, children, men, the total, 25 clients. And it's been that way, and apparently it's still the same way today. But about 1994, I started noticing we've got more than 25 people here. 28 at one time. Go for several months, and we'd have 27. Go for several months, and maybe there was 29. And many times, too, there were only 18 or 20 in there. 16 or 18. The place probably could have been filled to capacity, but for some reason it wasn't. I remember one time, I don't know, it must have been about 96 or 97, somewhere in there. It doesn't really matter. Went up the household and I says, "Don, we've got 26 people here." He says, "Well, you didn't count them a while back. We had 31. He's right, I didn't count them. But I've got something somewhere, if I check, it'll probably show 31 people. Now the zoning law said 25 people. Since the Joseph House has been open and running, they have consistently broken the zoning laws. A complete, utter disregard for the zoning laws. Several years ago, they were going to go before the zoning board, but there's a $500 filing fee. The attitude at the Poverello, let's just keep breaking the law. We don't want to pay the fee. Well, apparently things have reached the point, now they're going to pay it. Now they're going to increase the capacity. And if there's anybody out there in the zoning board, please, go along with this request. The beds are needed. The rooms are needed. There's too many people on the street. There's too many women and children that don't have a place to stay. I know. I work at a couple of motels. I see the women and children that are put up at these motels through different agencies. They're much better off at the Joseph. In spite of all of the problems at the Joseph, they're much better off. So if you've got somebody in the zoning board, I'm asking you, please, increase the capacity. Properly handled, with the proper supervision, the Joseph House can probably handle upwards of 35 people. That's 10 people more, and mostly women and children, that can be handled today. Please, increase the capacity. But keep in mind that if you don't, they're still going to go along and break the law. I'm thoroughly convinced of this. And the board of directors is aware of the fact that they're breaking the law. There's no way that they can't know about it. There's rent receipts that have to be reported. There's different figures, statistics, forms that have to be made out. And the whole thing comes back, are we going to put more than 25 people in? Are we going to break the law? Larry DeGamo says yes. He has the final say on who goes to the Joseph and who doesn't. And I'm sure the board of directors knows what he's doing. And if they don't know this, shame on them. Another interesting article I picked up this week, courtesy of Dr. Coop. Women who have experienced abuse in childhood or as adults are far more likely than are other women to develop common illnesses, according to results of a Swedish study. And the article goes on to say, low levels of social support substantially increased the levels of symptoms among abused women. Gosh, how many stories have we heard about the abused women at the Poverello? You're going to see a short clip at the end of tonight's program of a couple of people, a couple of short stories of abuse. One of them is a woman. How about the women with the children that have suffered abuse? Is the Poverello creating more sickness in these women? They certainly haven't been helping them. But this is one of them, let's be patient, let's see what happens. Let's wait till they're all through getting all these renovations done and stuff like that. But I'm hearing stuff on the street again. It's not bad, but it's not great. This morning in the paper, another interesting article by the go-along, get-along gal, Ginny Merriam. During 2000, the Poverello has been an exceptionally busy place. A 6-week remodeling project has stretched into 4 months. Without a loss of service to the homeless and the hungry. Well, I question that. I seriously question that. Who come in for shelter and meals. Well, this is interesting. A 6-week remodeling project stretching into 4 months. Why? I don't know. It just shouldn't have happened. There were no inspectors on the job. There was nothing. At one time, I guess it was the city inspector came down, took a look at the project, found enough mistakes for a $2 million structure. An $80,000 add-on has enough mistakes for a $2 million add-on. You figure out the mathematics on that one. They blew it. Pure and simple. It started right at the beginning. The contractor came in, poured the cement foundation, laid the joists for the floor, till one of the clients pointed out it was in violation. The joists were not there wasn't at least 30 inches between the joist and the ground, which the law requires. It was necessary to take the joists out and start all over again. Dig a couple of holes to get into the main building. There was some plumbing that had to be put in for heating that wasn't in. The warning signs were there, the flag was up, it was waving, and what was done? They just let these people go on and on and on. Well, that's okay, but not really. Things were never corrected. The case is standing in, it's probably in court right now. They're litigating, negotiating. But in the meantime, the room can't be used. The article in the Independent reads, no room at the tables. Poverello, there's no tables at the room. Sad. Shouldn't have happened. At, I think it was the last board of directors meeting, I asked, how can $2 million worth of mistakes, enough mistakes for a $2 million building be allowed to accumulate? Larry DeGamo sort of mumbles, well, they left the same supervisor there, but they kept changing the help. You know, I got to thinking about that. That's the story of the Poverello. Problems, more problems, complaints, complaints. They leave the same director there and keep changing the help. Life has its ironies, doesn't it? Jeannie Merriam goes on to write concerning the Poverello and the Joseph residence, almost a $500,000 budget. I haven't got into that part yet. She writes, it runs almost entirely on donations of money and gifts of food. Well, I have to take a little bit of issue with that. It runs almost entirely on donations of money. It doesn't. It doesn't run almost entirely on donations of money. In 1999, total revenue for the Poverello was $314,979. $314,979. Form 990, the Poverello tax return. That's the total revenue as reported on line 12. When we come further up on the form, under contributions, direct public support, $192,509. Person doesn't have to be much of a mathematician. $314,979 from the public, checks mailed in, stuff like that. $192,509. Where did the other $122,470 come from? Just about 40% of the cash income to the Poverello came from other sources. Mostly government grants, your tax money and my tax money, not donations. What is Ginny Merriam talking about when she says it runs almost entirely on donations? This is not true. 60% of the funding is from donations. I don't consider 60% almost entirely. Again, go along, get along. And before we take a little short profile of 3 people, 3 clients, 2 of our brothers and 1 of our sisters, I'm indebted to a man named John F. Montgomery. I don't know who he is. I don't know where he is. I don't know what he does. Apparently he's homeless. I have a couple of poems, and tonight I'm just going to read one of them to you. I love them. Heaven for the Homeless, John F. Montgomery. Is there a heaven for the homeless when we leave this earth below? When our time on earth is over, will we have a place to go? It's hell enough here below, living on what others give. If God gives us a home in heaven, then we'll have a place to live. I can almost see us now, gathered around God's throne, feeling proud of ourselves because we finally have a home. What about all the others who call us a bum, laughing at us behind our backs, and always making fun? Isn't it true we're all the same in the eyes of God? Then you'd better be careful, friend, of the path you trod. Think about those things you say and of the things you do, or you might find on Judgment Day that you are homeless too. Thank you, John F. Montgomery. Now to end our program, let's take a quick profile. 2 of our brothers, 1 of our sisters. See you again next week. Good night and God bless.
Poverello.
Hell yeah. I go up there, I feel like a piece of shit. I know I'm homeless, but that don't make me a criminal. It don't make me a piece of shit, and it don't make anything else.
But I don't understand is, why these people support this place. I really don't.
They're scared. They're scared.
I'm not scared. I'm not afraid of nothing. I'm out here.
Scared.
I'm out here. I'm a survivor.
And I wrote the song down. And I don't know whether it's going to have any special effects or not, but I'm going to play it for you anyway. Wake up, brother! Where you going, brother?
Spokane.
Spokane.
Hey, brother.
Trip, fly safe. Dago's the name.
Got him, Dago. Thank you.